Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Day Zero. Have you heard of a company called Refarm'd? Well, they're the subject of today's episode. I'm speaking to their CEO and founder, Geraldine Starke, and Refarm'd are a company that are helping farmers, dairy farmers, transition out of the industry into alternatives. It's really fascinating model. I'll let Geraldine tell you more about it when we get into the episode. Before that, just a reminder about some of the other episodes we've got out there. Maybe you want to hear more about how strong our communities can be when we work together. There's a great episode called Power of Communities and the Transition Movement. And I had a chat with Phil Frodsham about that recently. Maybe you've seen social media stuff about Clean Air Day recently, and last week's episode was all about air pollution with a good friend of mine, Ryan Proctor. Maybe you want to hear what it's like day to day in what I do for a living in the refill shop business. I had a chat with Abby Sellers in one of our previous episodes. Abby owns a whole food refill shop as well. So there's plenty to check out, plenty more good ones coming soon. Got some great guests lined up. Got plenty of recording to do in the next couple of weeks. But for now, let's get into the chat that I had with Geraldine. It was a really great chat. Her passion and conviction for the mission that she's on is really palpable, really comes across. Hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Geraldine, to Beyond Day Zero. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Do you want to first off explain what your current project is and what it's all about, just as background? I think that'd be really a good place to start.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Refarm'd, and what we're doing is we're helping farmers, dairy farmers mainly, switch from animal to plant milk production. And we turn their farmland in an animal sanctuary for their herd at the same time. We're helping them produce fresh, handmade, local plant drink that is sold in glass bottles. So that's the general idea of the whole project.
Great. So it's a transition for dairy farmers. And is it only dairy farmers?
So no, it's like more for communication reasons. It's more easy to say from dairy farm to plant milk.
Yeah.
But we're basically working with any types of farms. What we do target though are small to medium scale farms, not factory farms. No, not as well like chicken or pig farms, because we require them to keep the animals as a sanctuary, and obviously those animals don't have the condition to stay on those farms. So we're really more targeting small to medium dairy farms, but also meat farms.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic approach. So to create sanctuaries for the animals as well. So how did you come up with that as a way of as an idea? It must be something about your own personal beliefs or background.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, when I went vegan almost more than 10 years ago now, something I always wanted was to build my own animal sanctuary initially. But I was never happy with the current model of sanctuaries, relying on donations, relying on volunteers. And I had friends who have sanctuaries. They always struggle. Then in some places you get kicked out from the land you're renting, and then you end up with all these animals and you don't know where to go. So I always wanted to kind of create a self-sustainable model for sanctuaries. And so at some point, I was looking into what was happening between farmers and vegans in France, especially where I'm from. A few years ago, there was really there still is this war between, farmers and vegans, where a farmer would come and interrupt vegan events with their steaks and barbecue, and vegans would come and tag on butcher shops or go on farms and destroy things or things like that. But yeah, I never really liked the situation because it's like, for me, veganism is not just about the animals, it's also about the human animals, like compassion for everyone. So I was not happy about anybody suffering from any of this situation. So I was at some point just thinking, oh wow, it would be great actually if farms could become sanctuaries, because they already have, the land, the infrastructure for the animals. The animals are there. They know how to care for them on a daily basis, which most of us don't, know how to do. And in most cases, when you rescue animals, you have to split the herds, split families. Basically, you have to find space for all these animals. It's really complicated. So by just transitioning them, it doesn't change much, on site, like for the farm for themselves. They just stop all the exploitation part, obviously. So and also because we cannot just continue saving all these animals if they this farmers continue breeding them by the billions every year. It just doesn't match. So that's why transforming directly the farm has a direct impact on animal exploitation, because every farm we're working with is one farm less that is going to produce, bring to life more babies into this industry. And also it's a very resources consuming industry, animal farming. So using more land, more resources to save these animals is also problematic in our situation now with climate change and everything. So by switching a farm directly, again, you don't need more resources, and on the long term, we also wanting to help farmers, become more sustainable, and make changes on the farm to restore the soil, enhance biodiversity, go on renewable energies and all these things. So it's like there's a lot of different things that would come up with this project, but we're starting with this.
So it touches on a lot of different areas. It's really interesting to hear as well how confrontational things have been and might still be in France, because it's not quite like that in the UK. I'm sure there are times, but it sounds like you're saying that's a regular, or has been a regular occurrence, where there's real conflict and not, like you say, not compassion for.
That's like, farmers are suffering. There are more and more suicidal rates. Rates are going up.
Okay.
But the problem is they're blaming vegans, because they're blaming vegans for not supporting them, not buying their products, and all these things. So it's a shortcut. It's because of the vegans, and obviously vegans blame them for what's happening to animals. But I think this is on both sides. It's a shortcut. There's like a huge lobby behind it. It's like, these people are born into this, usually into this industry. It's for them. They have been taught that this is normal to do. It's like your family is in it for years and years. It's just not. They're not just bad people. They just learn to accept what they're doing as normal.
What's the state of play with the switch to a vegan diet in France? Is it, do you have I suppose you might not know, I don't know how well you know it in the UK, but it's growing all the time here, and I'm not quite sure what the figures are. It's still quite low in terms of the total population. Do you feel, is it the same track that it's on in France?
It is getting much better, definitely, but I think UK is really one of the most rapidly growing. Spain as well. I'm currently living in Spain, actually.
Okay.
And here it's growing as well, although it's very meaty.
We used to holiday quite a lot in Spain until fairly recently. Which area are you? Whereabouts in Spain are you?
In Valencia.
Okay. So we used to go down to the coast. It was on holidays typically. There's a family place on the Costa del Sol, and it was actually the last time we went, there were a few more places that you could eat, but it was still few and far between, and a lot of places really didn't know what a vegan diet was.
It's getting more and more now. We really see it more and more, like fully vegan restaurants and things like that, but also like classical traditional restaurants having more options. So we really see it more and more. Obviously, in the bigger cities, you have it more. France as well, but I don't think as much as the UK or in Germany, for example. Well, Germany, especially Berlin. But I think, for the rest, where it's getting there, but it's like a bit slower, I think, than the UK. That's also why we're a bit focusing on the UK with our project.
The UK market has changed such a lot. Even in the last 5 years, it's dramatically increased the number of options there are, the number of the number of completely vegan places that you can go and eat, but the fact that there are options everywhere, you know, it's unusual to not be able to go and have something, you know,
Yeah.
be that if it's for a coffee, having plant milk, or, you know, food options as well. It's changed a lot. I mean, you say you've been vegan for 10 years. So
Yeah.
I've been vegan for 2, and I was probably about 10 years a vegetarian before that. And I remember when I became vegetarian, there weren't even that many options.
Yeah.
Then, you know, it wasn't. I don't know. It's probably not as far advanced as the vegan thing. It really has just taken off
Yeah.
in that decade. I think
Yeah. Exactly.
there was so little choice a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's so the advanced state of the kind of the plant-based market in the UK is why you're concentrating on the UK with Refarm'd. Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to be global. We set up the company in the UK. It made more sense as wanting to be a global company. And then we just thought, you know, we're gonna work where farmers you know, ask us to. That's why we initially last year worked with the farm in the UK and 2 farms in Switzerland. But yeah, it was a bit too much and very challenging, especially in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
To handle
That's
all
very
that.
brave. Very brave.
I
Did
don't
you
know if it's
actually?
brave or naive or stupid, but it was difficult, definitely. That's why now we really said instead. I mean, it's, you know, 2 countries, 2 different languages, 2 different, you know, rules and how everything works. Even the market is different, the taste is different, everything, you know, is different when you go to 2 countries. And starting like this is too much. So that's why we now decided to really focus on the UK for the first few years, before then moving on to other countries.
Okay. So when was it that you got going in the UK? When exactly was it? Just
So the production, like when we started selling the milk and the oat milk, was in December 2020. But obviously we were working before that with the farmers. So the farmers are Jay and Katka Wilde, that you probably know from the 73 Cows documentary. That was the first farmers we decided to work with. So they
okay. So
had,
they were your first. I mean, I was aware of them because they're fairly local to where we
yeah.
are. But I didn't realise they were actually the first. I kind of assumed that you know there was a few others, and it was just that was our most local one. So they were the ones to sort of get
in
it all
the
going.
UK, that's our first and only one for now.
Okay.
And that's like our pilot farm, basically, where we were really trying out our model to really get it to a scalable and successful model before we move on to other farms. Because in the case for Jay and Katya, is they were already a sanctuary, as you probably know. With the help of the Vegan Society, they transitioned to that a few years ago, 4 years ago, I think now. They wanted to transition to plant agriculture, so to veganic agriculture actually, and you know, and start planting and all that. But when I started talking with them, because the first year when I thought about this project, the first year was just talking with farmers, ex-farmers, people in this industry, to find out, you know, if this project even makes sense. So Jay was one of this person I was talking to, and he really liked the project, and he actually helped me work on it and develop it over the few months. And at some point because the thing is that even now, 4 years ago, they are still not able to plant any crops, because it's really complicated with the regulations. Like, you cannot use the land that was used for animals before to use it for human consumption, you know, to produce crops for human consumption. Like this, you have to restore the soil. There are different rules, especially because they're inorganic.
Yeah.
So until now, they haven't been able to do that. So that's also why we created this project, is that we wanted a solution that was quicker, less risky for farmers, and that could also work for farms where they cannot plant at all, for those who don't have enough arable land, or those who are in the mountains, or, you know, any, because that's also something we hear a lot, you know, when we say, oh, they can, you know, farmers can switch to plant agriculture. A lot will say, oh no, but I can't, I don't have arable land, or I can only grow this type of thing, and so that's not going to be sold. So that's why we don't ask our farmers to actually grow the crops we need for the plant milk or plant dairy alternatives. Initially, at least, we source it locally directly. So they become manufacturers, basically, of those products, and sell it. Obviously, farmers who can have the land and know how to do it, they can start planting, and then using their own, so that they also reduce costs. That's what happened with the 2 farmers we had in Switzerland. We started them immediately on an oat drink with local ingredients. But then they, at the same time, they planted the oats, and now in spring they were able to harvest the first time their own oats and use that. But we really wanted to keep it as easy and quick as possible. So now transition is a matter of a few weeks, depending on the type of the farm and how ready farmers are, basically. But so we really wanted it to be this way, that it doesn't require a huge investment, huge machinery, and lots of years working on the land before you're able to even earn money from it. So that's really why we created this like this.
Okay, so you feel you have a model that actually is ready to go for farmers that want to transition and is cost effective and is going to generate an income for them fairly quickly.
Yeah, so that's really what we're trying to do. We're still totally in an experimental phase. So this first year, so it was not even a year, especially for UK. They just started selling in December. And we paused in March. So it was like 4 months only. And the Swiss farmers a bit before, it was in October. But it was great for us to really test things. We needed to work on so many different aspects, like distribution. We were doing our own distribution with our own drivers because we could not find logistic system that would work, because our drinks are in glass bottles. It's fresh. It needs to be in the cold chain. We need to get the bottles back, so we need drivers to bring the bottles back, and it was just not possible. Or those who wanted to do, like the big companies don't do it. They don't bring you bottles back, and smaller ones that would have done it would be so expensive that we would have to charge customers more for delivery than for the milk. Obviously, it doesn't make sense. So we had to do it ourselves, but it was really, really challenging, and it cost us actually more than what we got from the milk. So that's really a huge problem we had that we started working on. Like the recipe as well, for example, we are not, building factories. We are working with us in a small environment to produce fresh handmade products, and it's farmers directly making it. So we cannot use the same machinery, the same products even as those big companies, because we don't have the same resources, but also like the whole environment, and we need to take that into account. And that was a huge difficulty, because it doesn't exist. Medium or small scale equipment for plant milk doesn't exist. So we had to work with the dairy company to kind of adapt some of their machines for us, but they had no idea, we had no idea. So we ended up with something that works, but is not optimized. So that is also something we're working on now that we understand better what we need and how our recipe works. Now we're working with engineers to develop our own machine to be able to scale production. But that was all different aspects that were really complicated in this first year, and with Refarm'd, and lastly the recipe as well. Because we really wanted the product that was as fresh, as healthy, as clean, if I can say so, as possible. So for example, oat milk is actually one of the hardest plant milk to do, because it has a lot of starches. So if you just cook it up, you end up with porridge or something like that. You need enzymes.
No one wants that in a bottle. No.
Exactly. No. Or you can just do it at home, with cold water and stuff, but it's not commercially.
I've tried making our own oat milk at home, and it's not. Well, I know there are some people that love it and seem to have really nailed the recipe. We didn't.
You can if you add like dates, cashews, and things like that. But we want to stay local. We want to use only local ingredients, and that is really hard. And not add too many things, so that is also a natural one that you can use in your coffee, because it's really difficult, because it cannot be too sweet, because people don't want it to change the taste of their coffee. So there are lots of things to take into account. So we needed enzymes to break down the starches into simple sugars, but we didn't want to go with the same enzymes that the company go, because it's lab made chemical enzymes, and those are actually quite dangerous to manipulate for people doing the milk, and we could not do that with our farmers. You need really specific machines and ventilation system because it's something that the dust, if it goes in the air and you breathe it in, it can be dangerous. So you need like specific masks, special like hoovers that can. It was really specific. So we didn't want to do that. And also when we found out more about that, we were like, okay, no, I don't want to drink something like that neither. Even if it obviously once it's used and diluted is not as dangerous, but still we really want to recreate this feeling that you had when you would go, like, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, you would go to your local dairy farm and you would go get fresh milk or fresh cheese, this quality handmade things, to just recreate that, but in a more sustainable and compassionate
Yeah.
you know, with plants basically. So that's really what we try to focus on. But obviously, this was a huge challenge to come up with a recipe that is good and at the same time fresh and all this. So that's why we developed the first recipe, and then a second one that was much better, that people like much more. But still, it was a natural one, so it was not a barista version or fortified version. So we really got this feedback that we needed that. So that's why we also started working on that. So that's why in March we actually paused the whole thing.
So where are you now with it then?
Yeah, so the whole idea was to really pause, to work on all these aspects like machinery, the recipe, distribution model, and also in general rethink the whole model, because we had also some difficulties with the farmers in Switzerland especially. So we really wanted to create something that farmers want. We don't want to create something that farmers don't want. So we
Yeah.
need really to learn from that and to change a little bit our model. So I worked with business
So what?
advisors and all that.
Yeah. What was the issue in Switzerland then? You said, was it just?
So it's what I would say is mainly like how the model was is that we were selling the milk as the farmer's milk, although for all farms it was our recipe, our
Yeah.
machines and everything. This, in my opinion, this was made that the farmers wanted to be really involved in the business. But it's difficult when you work with a lot of farmers, and you want to create a model that is, scalable and works with
Yeah.
farmers. And the farmers only have their farm, in their head, so it doesn't matter. And you cannot work like this if you need to, get approval basically for everything you're doing. So there was this confusion for that, and also we didn't have really control on the production and the end product. Because it was their product, but on the same time our recipe. So we didn't have clear enough steps on that. So it's all the thing, and communication was not the best from their side, from our side. We are still learning.
Yeah.
We were overwhelmed with, like, honestly, until March, our daily job, even my daily job, was just to make sure that we make those deliveries,
Yeah.
in those two countries and 3 farms with a pandemic, meaning like shops closing sometimes open, sometimes different hours.
Yeah.
Holidays, obviously, that came in the middle of it. All the things. So and because we worked with subscription models, we had all this customer support to do as well. So our daily job was just that, making sure that this week we have a driver, this week we managed to make the milk and distribute it. We're doing the routes. So we had no moment to really take a step back and think about the whole thing and improve where we could improve. So they had high expectation. We tried to reach that, but we were so really overwhelmed as a small team working part-time mainly to do that. That's why they have decided to continue selling the milk book on their own. So we stopped working with them, and we really focus now on the UK. So we still decided to pause the UK as well, to just not go in the same direction and to really work with the farmers to understand. We also understood there are different types, if I can say so, of farmers. There are the younger ones that just take over, that have business knowledge, they want to do their own things. And then you have older ones, or not necessarily older ones, but they don't want to have to do anything with business. They just want to be on the farm, take care for the farm, and know exactly what they need to produce, and that's it. So there are different kinds of what farmers want and expect, and that's also why probably we'll have different models on the long term.
Yeah, well, you did amazingly well to actually get some plant milk out there with all that to deal with. It was when you hear about what was going on in the background, it must have just been a constant battle just to stay on top of it all.
Yeah, exactly. That's really why we needed to have this step back, and also until now it was self-funded. So we obviously had much more cost than expected. We initially wanted to start 1 farm, not 3 farms. And so we also got to a point where I started working with business advisors and, developing a new model that makes more sense, financially speaking. And so we are now really in the process where we are applying for grants. We are working with investors, VCs and everything to raise funds to really, because this was also holding us back, especially on equipment and things like that. So to really get us to the next level and be able to really have a good, successful model with our partner farm in the UK, to then work with the other farmers that are waiting to be transitioned.
Yeah. So are there farmers waiting? Were you contacted by other farmers that weren't in your original original rollout of the business.
Exactly, we have a waiting list. So initially, I really thought that I would have to go out, find farmers, convince them, and do all these things when I started. But actually, no, when we started working with Jay and Katka and started talking more and more about this project, we got actually a lot of media attention. And this really
Okay.
got to either to farmers directly or to organization already trying to help them, but more in a non-profit organization trying to give them advice and things like that, but not a real business model behind it. So that they kind of contacted us to help them. So we actually got a contact, and the more we got, the more we started then working with one farm, a second farm, a third farm, and people hearing about that. So we got contacted by farmers actually in lots of different countries. Because
Right.
initially we just said we will work anywhere, but also in the UK we have 3 or 4 waiting as well to be transitioned.
It's a really interesting situation, and it does show that, I guess it shows the direction that farming is going in, and the difficulty that people in the farming industry are having. The pressure that's applied to them in whatever form of farming they're in, the pressure that's applied to them to mass produce stuff very cheaply, and the pressure that puts on land and the environment and on them personally. It's certainly not an easy business to be in. So it's not surprising, as you say, it must be. I mean, you mentioned a rise in suicides, and mentally it must be a very, very difficult industry to be working in. And it's a really interesting model, though, the fact that it's not just, you haven't just gone, right, let's create plant milk, and because the plant milk industry is growing, but to go, well, let's help farmers transition. It's it's a fantastic ambition and a fantastic mission that you're on to do that. When are you going to be looking at getting things going again? Do you know that yet, or are you unsure?
Yeah. So it's still a little bit unsure, but now we start to have clearer plans. For now, we would just start again like before, in the sense we would just start with our natural oat milk, because initially we wanted to wait until we have the machinery, perfect machinery, the new recipe, the funds and everything, but this will take a while. So if we do that, we won't start before next year. So we decided to start the farmers again, because they're a partner farm. We can continue experimenting with them. They already have the machines, everything ready. So it would be a shame not to continue. So we're just going to continue with our natural product and change a little bit distribution. So we will not do subscription models anymore. So it's not subscription and pickup location, because we really realize it's important that it's convenient and easy for people to get the milk. We need to make it as easy as possible to people to get the milk, or we're not going to be able to scale.
So you're looking probably for like retailers to just stock it and things like that.
Exactly. So we're looking for mostly shops. So it's usually organic bulk shops like this, restaurants and cafes as well. Although they would probably more come with our barista version. And we're also looking into milkmans and things like that for home deliveries, because there's a lot of requests for that as well. But I think the really first step we're gonna do, and if we start again in September, would be to just start with shops, and we're probably gonna focus on one city first, because we were spread almost 200 kilometers. That made it really difficult and really expensive actually, without so many sales going. So we're really going to focus and have much more places in one city that sell it, so it's really gets convenient for people in this city to get it, and then move on to other cities. We'll probably focus on Nottingham because it's closer to the farm, and also there are quite of organic shops, and people that could love this kind of product. So that's the plan right now, and to just start slowly, and while they are selling and producing on our side, we're going to be improving the machinery and working on the recipe and just take it to the next level, but so that we start again.
So what other products have you got in mind then, or are you not prepared to say at this point?
No,
clearly not just plant milk, there's other ideas.
No, we don't have a really clear, like, what's the second one. We have a few. We're trying out already some recipes. And we also like to get a lot of feedback from people to see really what is missing, or ourselves even, what would we like as a fresh product. And as a French person, I would say cheese. But so there's probably going to be other types of plant milk first as well. With different ingredients, because here's just a natural oat milk, that barista, but then also probably a mix of other plant milks. But then as well, yes, probably plant cheeses, yogurts, butters, all this kind of dairy alternatives. Basically, we're really going on that, and we continue making it fresh with as little ingredients as possible, local ingredients only, always in glass bottles. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on. So we don't have a really clear idea on what's the next product is, but a dairy alternative product.
Yeah, I really like the idea of a quality and a local product. I'm already converted, I think, to to believing that's the right thing to do. But I guess there's a bigger conversation, and I guess it's part of the reason I started doing the podcast, is to try and reach more people with some of the issues that I touch on day to day when I'm running the shop. Some of the environmental issues, ethical issues, sustainability issues. But one thing that really irritates me a lot is the fact that how much we naturally think about the price tag on things as being a true reflection of a product's worth. So there's a huge conversation, I think, that needs to happen about the fact that the price of something doesn't really reflect what's gone into producing it, and the pressure, how that's been produced, where it's produced, what the conditions are for the people that have produced it, the transport involved, all sorts of issues. And if I guess this probably sounds like it fits into your model. You're producing a really good quality plant milk locally, not done in the right way, and the price will reflect the true value of it, the true cost. Do you think that people are genuinely have their eyes open to how much things really cost, or do you think we're not there yet?
Yeah, probably not. It's also like understandable, people need to live, and it really depends on how much they earn, and what are their priorities. It's really difficult. It's a really difficult topic. Even people like really care for all these different subjects might not mean they're ready to pay for it. And in the case of our product, it's definitely a premium product for now. But one of our biggest goals is to really make it more mainstream, to reach more people, to make it more accessible. Why does it need to be at such price? Is for multiple reasons. Is first of all, like dairy and all the things, like they have a huge lobby behind it. They get lots of subsidies. So if you take that all out from them, you will not be able to pay the meat or the milk anymore. It's just so expensive. And also they're kind of centralizing all the production. It goes into these huge dairy processors, and then it's sold around the world, and processed highly. And all these things, they manage to optimize costs, and that's how they get a very cheap price. And most who are not earning are the farmers, who are selling in some cases for less than production cost. So it really is like, that's why sometimes people say, even if it's bad, or I don't know, I'm still gonna buy milk or meat, because I want to support the farmers. But actually, if they really want to support farmers, they need to support them by helping them get out of this system, because this industry is not just exploitative to the animals, but to them as well. And they're not earning from that. It's really the middleman between that, all these big companies that make the money from it. Farmers don't even know where the milk is going, if it's going to be sold as milk, as cheese, as yogurt, to who, in which country. They have no idea. So this is the first one. And then obviously we are starting, so we are paying full of pocket for everything, like machinery. It's not like when you're a bigger company, obviously you can optimize cost, you can partner with companies, you can reduce cost and things like that. So that's really something we want to work on, reducing the cost, so that optimizing, distribution, all the costs around it, so that we can really reduce the price of it. But initially, as not getting any support from the government or something like that, and having to do everything by ourselves with, we could get ingredients that are much cheaper, but that come from I don't know which country.
Yeah.
We could do things like that, or pay people very low wages to do the milk instead of
Yeah.
the farmers.
And then you're part of the problem, aren't you? And not
Yeah,
part of the
and
solution.
then we
Yeah.
can have something cheap, but that's really not what we want. So we do recognize that it's a premium product, and that even lots of people who would want to support that can't, and that's totally understandable. But we hope that by being a premium product, that a lot of people would start, buying, because it fits in this. Our customers are basically, we call them eco-conscious flexitarians, are really people that really care for sustainability, and that have the means to really support, local ingredients, local products, and things like that. Most of them are actually not vegans, our customers. There are more people really focused on sustainability. So really hope if they start buying it more, that it will have a bigger, we'll be able to sell more, and then start, really see where it's going, and be able to reduce prices, to be able then on the next step. That's usually how it works. You start with a high price, and slowly you're able to reduce that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, you say that most of the customers perhaps aren't vegans. I guess there are going to be people that hear about like you mentioned Jay and Katka's farm and what they've done. I guess there are going to be people that are aware of what they've done and will support them, even if they're not eating a plant-based diet. I guess people that are local to there, people that are nearby, will be really keen on, will know them, and I guess word spread about what they've done, and there's a whole other sort of consumer base that might not be vegan but are willing to support. I hadn't thought about that. I just expected, it's vegans that are going to be buying it. But yeah, so the feedback's been so you've been reaching out to lots of people, and
they really like mostly we got the feedback is they really like that it's made with local ingredients, that we support farmers, and that it's sold in glass bottles, because a lot of people don't want Tetra Pak or plastic anymore. So that's really the main points that really people liked. And a lot of people were actually even dairy drinkers, that they wanted so much to have a product that has less impact on the planet, that they started switching to that. So it was great as well to hear such feedback.
Yeah, I think you're right. The supporting farming. Farms are huge parts of local communities, aren't they? If farms disappear, that leaves a hole. It leaves a financial hole in the economy, in the local economy. So, I think local people really do understand where the farms are around them, and I guess to some degree what they do, even if they don't like what they do, but they understand the pressure that farmers are under, and want to see, and they don't want to see those people suffer, and continue in the situation they're being forced to trade and survive in. That's really interesting. So, how do you juggle it? Well, you're a parent as well, aren't you? How has being a parent guided your thinking on this? Does it make you more determined to succeed?
Being a parent, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, not in terms of what you're trying to do, because it's clearly, there's compassion for animals and for the environment, and I know how I kind of become more determined to do whatever I can in those areas since being a parent. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it definitely gives you strength. But honestly, when I started this project, I never thought I would actually do it, or really get to this point. Because I started other projects that went as well, but you just have ideas, and at some point you get catch up by how it's starting. Then you start something, then it goes, and I don't know how to explain, but just I'm still a bit surprised how we got there today. But it definitely gives you strength, I think, to really, and you also obviously want to be a role model. You know, you're already as a vegan and everything, you know, you want to transmit these values, you know, to your children. And although it's difficult because you're like, it's not the best time to, you know, have a startup and try something like this, whilst raising a toddler now, but baby when I
Yeah.
started. I don't know, I just didn't think too much about it, I think. I
You
should
just
have
wait.
maybe.
It just
But yeah, just happened.
well, if you're gonna if we wait for the right time, we can just wait forever, can't we? And
Yeah, probably won't happen. I would have had much more time before doing that, but now it's more complicated. But actually, I think it all also helped um, me get to this project because I really connected more. I really started Refarm when he was 6 months old, my son.
okay,
Like the idea, really the first idea. But I really felt this connection, you know, to as a mother to a child. I was breastfeeding, so I really felt this connection, and then could really connect to cows, you know,
yeah,
especially dairy. That's really why I'm focused on dairy cows, to really feel it. I was already, you know, knowing about that. I was already feeling very sad about that, but really then feeling yourself this, you know, connection with your child and imagining someone taking it away from you is just unbearable, you know. So it really connects you even more. So I think this probably helped and it gave the boost to really do something about it. Yeah, I think it's in general, it just changes you, gives you more strength and wanting to do something. And yeah, probably.
yeah, definitely. Um, you can't ignore that. It's hard to describe, isn't it? And I'm sure lots of people who hear this will know. Well, as a parent, you can't quite describe. You will do anything for your children,
Yeah.
and I guess when you know you clearly have really strong values about what impact you want to make on the world, and you do anything to try and achieve that really. And I mean, you sound very, you know, very determined. It's not surprising even during the pandemic that you've managed to get it off the ground. You're
I
clearly
know how
very,
good.
I'll make this happen any way that I can. This is, it's, yeah, fantastic. So, do you, even if you don't want to go into it, do you have an idea at the back of your mind for where you want to be with this in several years' time, or?
Well, as I said, the end goal is really easy, is to transition all the farmers in the whole world, you know, all the farmers in the world.
Yeah,
It's a
let's do it.
small
Yeah, let's
mission,
do that.
small mission, but
Yeah.
we're not going to stop before we do that, you know. But probably we'll develop other types of models. Maybe we won't only be doing, for example, dairy alternatives. We might combine it with other models. It could be, you know, educational aspects, like, you know, some farmers might want to give speeches, do tours,
Yeah.
you know, with schools even and things like that. It can be, you know, growing mushrooms. It can be, you know, solar energy, or it could be lots of different things that might be complementary. We really want to learn from farmers, because we know in some cases some farmers like to do lots of different things, you know, to kind of combine different things, and others not. So it really depends. Uh, but I think there's no I think there's an expression like sky is the limit. There's no limit. We're just starting with a first idea to just have a first model that could work. And really, we really want to work as a startup in the sense that we want to be scalable so that we can work with as much farmers as possible, as quickly as possible. And the only goal for that is obviously to do something about animal exploitation. That's the main goal behind it.
Yeah.
But I think there are lots of possibilities of how this could develop, and how we could as well partner and create a whole network, you know, around Refarm. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it will create a lot of things. We're creating networks of, for example, experts, veterinarians, for example, but are vegan, that are experts with animal farms, but not farm animals, sorry, but not, you know, those who just do the normal thing with on a farm, where just as soon as a cow has something a bit more difficult to heal or too costly, we just send it to slaughter. Obviously, that's not the case. So we really need people that will treat them as we would treat our dog or a cat, and try to save them until the end,
Or
you
each
know.
other.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
tried exactly, and just trying to save it until the end. And also because those animals are going to be now getting older, which most neither farmer nor veterinarians know how to care for, because usually at 5, 6, there
Yeah.
are some to slaughter in the dairy industry. So there might be a lot of diseases or problems, because they're highly modified, these animals, to be like machines to produce. So there will be probably lots of different machines. So we want to really have experts, that know how to care for that, and different types of insurances, maybe create insurances around it to support farmers, because there might be high costs for this, and if we want them to keep the animals as sanctuary, we need to take that into account. Lots of things, healing the soil has been destroyed, not just from
Yeah.
animals, but normal agriculture,
Yeah.
into rewilding. The less we're going to be needing animals for food, the more we can use land just to rewilding it, or for more food for people, if we need more food for people. So there are lots of different things, but I
What's
think,
happened
yeah.
on what's happened on Jay and Katja's farm in the time that they've since they got out of it? In terms of, I was going to ask you about sort of rewilding and the pressure on soil. So how has their environment changed since they stopped doing what they were doing before? Does it look a very different place?
I don't know all the details, to be really honest. I know they started planting, but just some veggies and things like that. But they
Okay.
really wanted to plant like really crops and things like that. But this is not possible for them now, and they might not even be able to do it. I think they've been doing a lot of work to kind of, how do you say, regenerate the soil,
Yeah.
to make it better. I think that was their main work. But I'm not sure exactly how it changed. Obviously, they had um, much more animals. They had over 90 animals, cows, and they gave 73 cows from the documentary to the hillside sanctuary. So they have still animals, but only 17. But the,
Yeah.
the thing is, it didn't change much in terms of land and everything, because the animals, they have this kind of model where the farm where the animals are tied inside. So that's why they could have so many, but that's why also they only kept 17, because really for the space they have for the animals to have a
Okay.
normal life,
For them
basically,
to be free and yeah.
exactly, it's 17 max. So that's why. So obviously they're still having land for the animals. They're also producing their own hay and selling hay as well. So they are still continuing to do that, and trying to work on this veggie part, and restoring the soil, and obviously now the plant milk as well.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of different ideas as well. They really are motivated to be an example for farmers, and yeah, it's really amazing working with them. We're really happy to be partnering up with them.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The kind of the restoration. You talk about the process they're having to go through to rebuild the soil, and we mentioned rewilding. There's a previous episode that I've done with a local family to where we live that have bought the land that was an upland dairy farm, and they're rewilding it. So it's interesting to see, and the farmer up there still has some cattle, and it's interesting to see where the hard edges are of what is now his much smaller area of land. You walk up the lane from home, and you see the vast difference in. I mean, you can't see it in detail, but the difference in biodiversity is obvious once the land has been left and the animals aren't on it, and it doesn't seem to. Whilst it might take a while to get to an optimal state, it seems like obviously a transition is already occurring, and it's a very visible one. You've only got to have fields that are no longer a monoculture to to experience a greatly enhanced biodiversity of insect life and for instance, and plant life. So it's interesting. It's interesting in lots of ways, and hearing about a model that is initially about producing really good quality plant milk ties into lots of other different aspects, and its benefits for the environment are obvious. The animal welfare, the compassion for other people, and which is a really important one, isn't it? Just going back to that nobody wants to see farmers fail at what they're doing, And it must be a huge relief to them to have an organisation that, that really come to them and have their best interests at heart. Because I'm sure that's not how they feel a lot of the time. I'm sure they feel under tremendous pressure. So it's a real story of hope, isn't it, for them at a time when they're under pressure?
Yeah, and we really realized there are a lot of farmers that actually want to get out of it for different reasons, but there are a lot, and that's why we got so many contacting us. And obviously, a lot of them want first to see others succeed before they make it. But of course, it's like it's a huge thing, and we're not making it like progressive. We're not, letting them continue their dairy activities while selling plant milk. So it's 100% transition. So obviously, they need to be more. They need to know it's safe for them and it's going to be profitable for them because they still need obviously to pay for everything. So yeah, we're kind of in this phase right now where we have our partner farm. We already work with 3 farms. We have some experience, and now we want to improve things until we reach a point where we really are confident about our model so that we can take it to other farms. We don't want to put farmers at risk to transition them and then it's not working or something. So that's why we're really going to focus with our partner farm now and until they are successful basically. And once they are successful, then we're going to work with other farms. But people are really more and more farmers are looking for ways out, especially when they're taking over, the farm from their parents or things like that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like a key point.
Sometimes it's just because it's a lot of work, and they for nothing, for not much. So they really they see that's not working, there's a problem there. We need to change.
And I guess,
they see the plant-based movement, so.
Yeah. And I guess if it's like a younger generation of a family that are taking over a farm, the older generation might have just had to work harder and harder and harder, year after year after year, and it's been a steady progression to get to the point where they're having to put so much into it for so little reward, and then someone new comes along and thinks, what?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot of as well tradition, like it's sentimental as well. It's like the history of your family. It's like you grew up on the farm, your family's there. It's like that's why usually the only solution they had was to sell the farm and do something totally different. But that's why we really wanted the solution where we can allow them to keep the farm. Basically, they will continue doing the same. Instead of milk, they just do plant milk, like in the idea, that's the idea. But we really wanted them to continue having, the farm, living on the farm, being there to produce fresh product for people and things like that. So that was really important for us.
Yeah, it's a fantastic project. So before we wrap up, tell people where do we find out more about Refarm'd, about what you're doing?
Yeah, so we have our website, which is refarm'd.com, so without the second E. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Refarm'd Official. That's mainly it. And then you have there all contacts like emails and numbers if you want to reach out.
And I've got and I've got some stuff that I'll put in the episode notes as well. Thank you for taking the time to talk through what you've done and what you're going to be doing. It's a really inspiring project and offers real hope. It's great. It's great to find out more about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So that was good, wasn't it? Really good chat. I enjoyed that, and let me know what you think about it. Do give us some feedback. Drop us an email to beyondday0podcast@gmail.com. It'd be really good if you've got someone in mind for a future episode that you think would make a great guest. Just, again, drop us an email, beyondday0podcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done already, and your podcast app or platform allows you to write a little review, then just write something amazing about the podcast there. It would help us get noticed by other people. And of course, when you scroll down and see the ratings, the chance that you can give a 1 to 5 star rating, just make it a 5-star rating. That would really help too. Oh, and apologies if you picked up a bit of background noise in that episode. Normally I record the podcasts in the evening about 8 o'clock because of getting our children to bed. And this one was done with Geraldine in the afternoon because she's also got childcare responsibilities as well. And unfortunately, I live quite close to a railway line. And right in the middle of that conversation, there was a really creaky goods train that went past the window. And I thought I'd filtered it out, but the microphone picked it up. The joys of podcasting. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the episode. Let's hope for fewer goods trains next time around. See you soon.